7 years ago, the Nintendo Switch took the world by storm. The world was already saying that Nintendo should quit making consoles and go full third party after the Wii U's failure. Well, Nintendo answered back and introduced the Nintendo Switch in 2017. Since then, it's been a lot of people's go-to console and honestly a lot of people's favorite console, including mine. The Nintendo Switch brought back something to me that I thought was lost in gaming, and I really do appreciate it for that. In this video, I'm gonna give a brief overview of my thoughts on the Nintendo Switch as a whole in 2024, as well as give some thoughts on what I would wish would hopefully come to the new Nintendo Switch that is rumored to come out next year. So let's go ahead and get started. In 2017, Nintendo was already dead set at not repeating their mistakes that they had with the Wii U, and that was to go ahead and launch with plenty of games, in which it actually did. It started off with a good launch with The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, which was that year's game of the year, and honestly, till this day, a lot of people's favorite game of all time. It was honestly my favorite game of all time until Tears of the Kingdom came out, which in my head, it basically is Breath of the Wild, just a little bit better overall. They fixed a lot of mechanics and added a bunch of mechanics to it and expanded on what Breath of the Wild did good, and that puts Tears of the Kingdom ahead of Breath of the Wild for me. But a lot of people still love Breath of the Wild for what it brought to the table. It was something new when it came to open world design. It just opens up and allows you to tackle the game however you want it to, which was pretty awesome. You had a lot of people speedrunning the game, doing all these different things to go ahead and just finish the game, and I thought that was neat. I'll never forget when that game came out, how everybody was talking about what they were doing in that game, and everybody was going around and doing a different path. For me, I went ahead and was looking for any water area because for whatever reason, I do enjoy water levels, even though water temples typically suck and are usually the hardest to come, or rather the hardest to beat. But I do enjoy water levels, and that was the first thing I was dead set on going into, was looking for something that was water related. But let's not also forget the Game of the Year nominee that was released that year, which was Super Mario Odyssey. Super Mario Odyssey basically did the same thing Breath of the Wild did, in that it took 3D Mario to the next level. Jumping mechanics were perfected, there were other movement mechanics that were tried, and not only that, it allowed you to copy abilities in a different way in terms of using Cappy to go ahead and manipulate different, I guess you would say, enemies that were around there, such as controlling a T-Rex, being a fish, or other things inside the game. This was actually a huge hit as well, and it had a lot of people debating on which of the two Nintendo games should be Game of the Year. Honestly, when you really look back at it, those two games were really amazing. And it's hard to pick, but for me, Zelda will always come out number one, so I would definitely always choose Zelda over Mario. That's not to say that Super Mario Odyssey was not bad, or rather it wasn't bad at all, because it was an amazing game. In my opinion, one of the best 3D Mario games. Well, I'm still a little impartial to Mario 64 just because I don't know, I just really like the level design of Mario 64. Super Mario Odyssey is also very, very good. My favorite feature in Super Mario Odyssey was being able to go ahead and do 2D levels. So think of A Link Between Worlds and kind of going into these little like paintings kind of like that. Well, instead you can go ahead basically into a warp pipe, which would allow you to go ahead and do some 2D levels within the game. And to me, that was amazing. Just the combination of having 3D and 2D levels in the game always gets me excited. I think back to Sonic Generations, where you had classic Sonic and modern Sonic, and being able to do two different types of levels in those games. That was pretty awesome. But those weren't the only two highlighted Nintendo games to come out that year. There were actually two more that I think were also a big deal. One of them being Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which at the time we would not know it, but this game just continues to sell like crazy. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, of course, originally came out on the Wii U as Mario Kart 8, but this added features gave you all the DLC in there and so forth. Later on, of course, they would add another season pass, which added more courses, more characters, and so forth. But honestly, this game till this day is probably one of the best Mario Kart games out there. Just all of the tracks that it has, all of the characters it has, it truly has become Mario Kart All-Stars. And it's something that honestly, I wouldn't be mad if the game were just to continue on the next Nintendo Switch and just add more characters and more courses, because really this is Mario Kart perfected. But this was another game that came out that year and had people playing their Switch like crazy. The other game was something that honestly was something that I didn't think was going to come out, but it did and caught people by surprise. It was the best-selling game of that franchise, and that is Zen Blade Chronicles 2. Zen Blade Chronicles 2 came in and honestly is probably one of the best RPGs to come out that year and was on a lot of people's radar in terms of being the best RPG for that year. Zen Blade Chronicles 2 was a game that, yeah, it had a little bit of controversy because people just did not like the design direction in terms of making it more anime-ish, but honestly, I was okay with that. The game overall is an amazing game, an amazing story, and just all the mechanics in that game are just amazing. A lot of those game mechanics will return in Zen Blade Chronicles 3 later on, but for Zen Blade Chronicles 2, it is one of the best RPGs out there still till this day. When I really think about it, that first year was pretty crazy. There was a bunch more games that came out, such as Azure Striker Gunvolt, a game that I actually enjoyed on 3DS, as well as some other games out there that a lot of people had fun playing. There was a lot of good games coming out on Nintendo Switch in its first year, and when you really look at it, yeah, I think that's kind of what pretty much made Nintendo a success that year. Just a bunch of games coming out. Now, the software wasn't the only thing that was getting people's interest. No, rather, the hardware was very unique in design. The hardware was unique because it was a design made that allowed you to go ahead and not only play on your TV, but also play on the go. And this was something that was not seen for some time, because typically if you want to do something where you can play on the go as well as play on your TV, you had to buy extra pieces of hardware to be able to do that. Think back to the GameCube and the Game Boy player. Yes, you can go ahead and play GBA games on your TV, but if you wanted to play it on the go, you had to go ahead and buy a GBA. This was something different because this was playing AAA games, AAA console games at that, on the go. And this was something that the last thing that I can think of that was able to do that would have been the TurboGrafx 16, in terms of you being able to go ahead and use those same cartridges on both the home console as well as the Turbo Express. Because of this, just the possibilities that were out there were just huge. People were imagining different games being able to play on the go as well as on the TV, such as The Witcher 3. Not only that, but you had AAA Nintendo titles, console Nintendo titles being able to play on the go, such as Breath of the Wild. It was huge. Being able to play that on the TV and as well as take it to me when I'm at work or anything like that, that was something that I honestly didn't think I would see in my lifetime, or rather something I'd never really thought about. Because of this had a lot of people saying, port everything to Switch. A lot of people wanted all their AAA games, all their favorite AAA games to come to Nintendo Switch, regardless of what it is. You had people hoping for GTA, Red Dead Redemption, as well as some other games such as like Madden and MLB and all those other games out there. A lot of people were wanting these games on the Nintendo Switch to take with them on the go. And some people did go ahead and do that, such as CD Projekt Red with The Witcher 3. The Witcher 3 did eventually come out on Nintendo Switch, and while it was considered an impossible port, it did it, and it did it very well. Till this day, it's probably one of the best ported AAA games out there, because there are a lot of ports for the Nintendo Switch, but not all of them were created equally, unfortunately. The other unique design were the Joy-Con controllers. The Joy-Con controllers were pretty much implementing what they learned with the Wiimote and just sticking them on the console itself. You can detach both Joy-Con controllers and also use them as separate controllers, so you can go ahead and play multiplayer games without having to bring in along another controller. While for me personally, it's not ideal because it is not the best feeling in terms of how you use it, it still worked and was pretty fun. I remember using it once on a flight to go ahead and play Mario Kart with somebody else, and yeah, it got the job done. Again, wasn't the best feeling in terms of how it felt, wasn't that comfortable, but it does get the job done. Now, a lot of people are hoping that this just kind of goes away and instead we can get a traditional D-pad, because that is the one thing that the Joy-Cons are missing, and that is the traditional D-pad. Especially with NSO being available, you really want that traditional D-pad. But other than that, the hardware was good for the time. It was strong enough to tackle anything Nintendo threw at it. And honestly, there's a lot of games that look so good that you wonder, how are these technical miracles? Thinking back and looking at Metroid Prime Remastered, for example, it looks amazing. It looks better than any other remaster I've ever seen, and honestly, when you look at it, you wonder, how did they get this done? It is probably the best looking Nintendo Switch game on the console. You see, for me personally, the love of the Nintendo Switch is its hybrid nature. Being able to play games on the go as well as on the TV was the best thing that it had. But not only that, the combination of the great software that Nintendo pulled out is just another example of how Nintendo just continues to surprise us every day. Honestly, when I look at what the Nintendo Switch 2 might bring, I'm actually hopeful because there's a lot of great things that a Nintendo Switch 2 can add that the original Nintendo Switch did not have. Starting off with themes. Themes were missing from the Nintendo Switch, and I can't help but think that they were originally intending themes to come out to the Nintendo Switch. I mean, if you look into settings, there's a spot that says themes. Instead, it only gives you light and dark, and that is it. I remember first seeing that, I was like, oh wow, we might get different themes, such as, you know, like a Skyward Sword or Breath of the Wild theme, things that the 3DS had. But here we are in 2024 and there are no themes on the Nintendo Switch. Not only that, browsing the menus are just kind of boring. There are no background music at all. Nintendo kind of first introduced the background music in menus with the Nintendo Wii, and it's something that we had in the DSi, 3DS, the Wii U, and when it came to the Nintendo Switch, nothing. Unfortunately, there was no background music. No background home music, no eShop music, nothing. And that was something I was hoping would come in the future. It's just something about having those tunes, their specific tunes that they created for those pieces or for those menus that was just, I don't know, charming, I guess you can say. So some type of background music would be awesome to have on the new Nintendo Switch. But there's something else that I feel would be a lot bigger and I hope would actually come with the new Switch, and that is being able to purchase these retro games. Nintendo Switch Online came out and allowed you to go ahead and play a lot of older games on the NES, SNES, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, Sega Genesis, and Nintendo 64. But the issue with all of that is that you cannot purchase those games. Those games are, yes, available through subscription through Nintendo Switch Online, but that is it. And I would hope for them to give you the option to go ahead and purchase those classic games. Because, for example, what if Nintendo Switch Online were to go away just for whatever reason? What would happen to those games? Do those games leave as well? It's nice to just go ahead and be able to buy it and it's yours, even if you don't use the Nintendo Switch Online subscription. Honestly, I think a lot of people are subscribed to Nintendo Switch Online just for those things, and that is it. They're not playing too many games online unless it's like Smash Bros and stuff like that. But other than that, most people are probably subscribed because of the classic games. It would be nice to go ahead and be able to purchase these classic games. You can continue to call it NSO or maybe just bring back the Virtual Console banner, but nonetheless, let us buy our old games. And finally, one of the major things that I wish would come to the new Nintendo Switch is the new Joy-Con having some type of D-pad hybrid, because the D-pad, especially when playing those classic games on NSO, I feel is a must-have. But not only that, when I'm playing games such as Super Mario Bros. Wonder, yes, I do want a D-pad, not to be able to use the thumbstick. I don't know, for when it comes to 2D games, I do not use the thumbstick. I always look at the D-pad first. So having some type of hybrid, maybe being able to go ahead and shift it so that it feels like buttons and then you can like kind of turn it and it becomes a D-pad. I don't know how that would be done, but something like that would be nice. But I guess we'll have to wait and see what the new Nintendo Switch brings. Alright, Future James here. I forgot to talk about the most important thing that was the subject of this video, and that is my thoughts on the Nintendo Switch in 2024. Even though I had an amazing start, I do think it also is having an amazing finish. The Nintendo Switch seems to always continue to surprise me in many ways. Throughout the years, we got to see some impossible projects come to life, such as Zen Blade Chronicles 3. When you look at that game, artistically and visually, it looks more than what the Switch can handle. And yeah, you can argue that yes, Nintendo is using a lot of upscaling techniques to get those graphics to look that way, but nonetheless, it's still amazing in how Nintendo continued to surprise me. Tears of the Kingdom was the same thing, as well as most of the other first-party games that Nintendo has been coming out with in the last few years. They've continued to use these upscaling techniques to continue to surprise me and just bring new life to these visuals. Honestly, the console itself is no longer as strong as I wish it was, and that's why everybody's hoping for a Nintendo Switch 2 or a new Nintendo Switch, and that's something that I'm hoping for, to just, give it that extra push. But overall, if you were just to judge it on the software alone, including the hardware techniques that it has, such as OLED, Joy-Cons, and all that other good stuff, I still think the Nintendo Switch is an impressive console. It still deserves to be one of my favorite consoles, and honestly, I continue to play it all the time. When it comes to the Nintendo Switch in 2024, I still think it's well worth it to have, or if you already own one, just to keep it along the way. Now, if you're looking to buy a Nintendo Switch, I would probably hold off as of right now, because we do have a new Nintendo Switch coming around in the horizon. Typically, everybody's predicting next year, which I actually think it is going to come out next year, and it's something I'm very excited to see when it comes out. Anyways, this was my overview of the Nintendo Switch. Honestly, one of my favorite consoles ever made, and a console that I always go back to. Even though I do use the Nintendo Switch a lot less because I have the Steam Deck, it is still an amazing console. I still go back to it and play NSO games, or just other first-party games that were available on the console. Even some third-party games I go back to and playing on there, because the Nintendo Switch is just a great machine. With the new OLED display and just everything else it has to offer, it is one of my favorite consoles ever made, and probably is my favorite console ever made when I really look at it. Here's hoping to just some more things added to the new Nintendo Switch, such as GameCube games on NSO. I know a lot of people would love to be able to play GameCube games on NSO, and while they're at it, bring back some Wii games. The Joy-Cons has gyro and all that good stuff, should be able to handle Wii games as well. Anyways, let me know your thoughts on the Nintendo Switch. Do you still play your Nintendo Switch today or not? Or is it just sitting down waiting for the new Nintendo Switch to come out? Me personally, I'll continue to pick it up every now and then and revisit some older titles, as well as the newer titles that Nintendo continues to push out. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. I do want to again thank everybody for hitting that subscribe button and getting me to 1,000 subscribers. It means so much. Here's to many more subscribers. I also want to apologize, I did not put out a video, I want to say last week and a couple weeks before that. I was just sick and going through a lot of stuff, so I am a little bit better now, so I'm here back at doing videos, and here's to many more videos. I'm brainstorming ideas, and I guess the hardest part for me right now is coming up with B-roll footage for some of the games. Just have an issue of this B-roll stuff just getting corrupted, and it's very annoying when it comes to me recording these games, but I'll go ahead and continue to make some games, and of course I will continue doing hardware reviews as I get them in. My name is James. I'll catch you guys next time.